Hi, this is Mike Urban with the Fiscal Alliance Foundation. I'm sitting here with none other than Paul Craney, the Executive Director. We have a lot to talk about today, so we'll just get right into it.
Good to see you again, Mike.
Yeah, good to see you too. So you want to start with what, the welfare study?
Yeah, we just released a study a couple weeks ago for the Fiscal Alliance Foundation. First time we dove into it. It was kind of interesting. We hear about welfare spending across the country right now. Obviously what's going on in some of the states, but then also the White House has brought out some really great reforms. First time in probably a generation we've seen some national welfare reform. Mm-hmm. But, you know, to no one's surprise, Massachusetts has their own problem with welfare spending. And so we wanted to look at this. It's been kind of in the back of our mind for a while. Believe it or not, Maura Healey is governor. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but she's been slowly chipping away at some of the reforms over the years. Mm-hmm. So we just released a study. It's written by a gentleman named Hayden DuBois. He's from New England. He did a great job with the study. Highly recommend it. You can check it out at fiscalalliancefoundation.org. But some big takeaways, and it's a complicated issue, but some of the big takeaways, Mike, guess how much money is spent in the Massachusetts budget on welfare? Like if you were to have a $10 bill or a $5 bill, like what do you think? How much of that is spent just on welfare in Massachusetts?
Too much.
Okay,
it's too much.
It's $1 and $4 now in the state budget. $1 and $4. Mm-hmm. So if you think about all the things we care about in the state, you know, you can name it, but you got welfare spending creeping at $1 and $4. It's really starting to crowd everything else out.
Yeah, I think that in regards to welfare, I think welfare is fine. But these programs need to have some tight restraints on them and make sure they're getting to the right people and not to the wrong people. And as you know, the problem with a lot of these welfare programs is that people like to abuse them. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because this is something that shouldn't be abused. And furthermore, it's something that it seems as though a lot of people have easy access to. I think that the stipulations in regards to some sort of stronger guidelines or enforcement on that, it needs to be done. It needs to be done.
Yeah, there's a lot of data in here. You're exactly right. You want these programs to help people, lift them out of poverty. But what we're starting to see is these programs are just keeping people in poverty. A lot of people who are able to work, you know, meaning that they don't have dependents, they're not elderly. They're on these programs, there's no work requirements, and they continue to take advantage of taxpayer money. But one of the things we wanted to do is kind of compare how Massachusetts welfare spending is to the rest of the region. Mm-hmm. You know, because you want to kind of compare apples to apples. You know, we can all kind of get lost in a lot of data and big numbers, but Massachusetts versus the national average and the region, we are spending more. It's like per capita, they call it per 100,000, than almost every state in New England. And New England has some of the highest welfare spending in the country. Mm-hmm. To put in perspective, our good friends in New Hampshire, for instance, the SNAP benefit, for every 100,000 people in New Hampshire, they have basically 5,400 people on SNAP. That number in Massachusetts is over 15,000, so tripling the amount in Massachusetts. For TANF, that's a program. For New Hampshire, it's 360 people, so not even 1,000, 360 people per 100,000. Massachusetts has 1,200, so that's 4 times the amount. Yeah. And you're seeing this data across the board that Massachusetts is very generous and probably the point where there's some major fraud. In fact, our study showed that in the last 2 years, there was $1 billion identified in fraud. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. Anytime you hit $1 billion in the state budget, you know, that's not an error. That's a program that is being taken advantage and no one seems to be watching it.
Well, I thought Healey said that these were all accounting errors or something like that, administrative errors.
Yeah, she... I forgot what reporter asked her. You know, it was like when all this stuff was happening nationally and they called the error rate was starting to pop up. Yeah. And she was like, oh, you know, this is just, you know, we had a tough pandemic or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she was talking about what they call the error rate. And I think it was right close to 15%
mm-hmm.
in Massachusetts.
Which is higher than the national average.
Yeah, way higher than the national average. And in fact, error rates actually don't count for the abuse situations we see, like when the U.S. attorney, who's the only one that seems to prosecute welfare fraud in our state, you know, finds a convenience store that's, you know, got millions and millions of dollars of abuse. Usually that stuff is not even in the error reports.
Right. So the error report is it's not fabricated, but it's just based on actual errors, not necessarily fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
So it could be substantially higher than what it is for everybody watching.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, the study, it was really good to kind of, you know, just dive into welfare spending. Anyone that cares about this issue, You should check it out. But even if this isn't a big pet project issue, again, I go back to $1 to $4 now in Massachusetts is being spent on this.
Yeah.
So if you care about local aid or other things in Massachusetts, it's hard to advocate for those kind of expenditures in the budget when welfare spending is just going out of control.
I mean, and really, if you think about the welfare, the underlying cause for a lot of this, like let's even talk outside of the scope of, administrative errors or fraud and stuff. The fact remains is that a lot of people are on these programs because they're in a position where the state has just become completely unaffordable and they need something, they need the help, right?
Yeah.
So it's a mixture of multiple things. I'm not saying that, we shouldn't have welfare. It should be distributed, and it should be distributed accurately, and they should do everything in their power to make sure it gets to the right people versus the wrong people. But unfortunately, in this world that we live in here, that's just not the case. They just don't care.
Yeah, and the other states are doing it at a much lower percentage than we are.
Exactly.
And we all know about what's going on with the last few years, all the migrants coming to Massachusetts.
Yes.
And now Healy taking a victory lap because, they're leaving the hotels. But for the taxpayer, there isn't really any difference because we're still paying a lot of money.
Correct.
And the study did go into what they call the Homebase program, which I know you know.
I know a little bit about that.
You know a little bit about that. Yeah. And it showed it, ready for this, a 217% increase in home-based spending. 217% increase.
Yeah. I called that out over a year ago of what was going to happen. I just, all you have to do is go to the government website and look at the data.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you have to do. And I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. They're going to refill the emergency shelter, and they're going to simultaneously spend the same amount of money on the emergency shelter system and spend more money on the home-based program. It is a program that is already... There was a bill that Liz Miranda tried to pass, I believe, around this time a year ago to increase the spend from $30,000 to $45,000. I think that ended up getting shot down. So they know that I know, and you know, and other people know that there's going to be abuse inside of this program, and that's exactly what is going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely happening right now. And actually, I think some of the TV news in Boston has done a good job. Some of them picking this up. Especially with kind of these, they call it, I think, like tenants from hell.
Yes.
These people who are basically professional squatters that use the home-based program and other programs, they blow through the money.
Yep.
And once the taxpayers can't, the program is exhausted, then they're just going to court to take advantage of these landlords.
Correct. What happened with the home-based program, that's one of the problems. And I also said over a year ago that this is exactly what's going to happen. The reason I know this is because I may or may not work in real estate. And I have friends that perhaps have big businesses that just handle tenants and landlords, and they said, this is coming. This is coming. And after that year is up from the people, you got to remember, they shut down the hotels 6 months early last year. Okay?
Yeah.
6 months, the 12-month time span is almost up. So guess what's going to happen after that? There's going to be a lot coming out of the woodwork, and we're already starting to see it happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's unfortunate for the landlords. And it's just, again, these programs, they get abused. The people abuse these programs.
The people in charge of them are not looking at the expenses. They're not looking at the fraud.
There's no verification of employment. I've spoken to people that work directly with the home-based program. They were hiring like these third-party contractors as facilitators.
Yeah.
And I've talked directly with them, and they said what is going on is insane. Because what'll happen is, you see, this is what we like to do here in Massachusetts. Generally speaking, when it comes to renting a place, you could only put forward first month's, last month's in a security deposit. Mm-hmm. But what had happened is, because we had so many people, so many migrants that came through into Massachusetts, because we're like a magnet here, we're like a migrant magnet, what happened is these people got put to the front of the line.
Yeah.
That's what ended up happening. There was no verification of employment, and they skipped the line ahead of people that were in dire need because they have... it's a needs basis. So what does that mean exactly? One person needs it more than the other. Well, who determines the methodology between what needs actually are? So what ended up happening was they were able to get away with incentivizing landlords and paying them an additional payment on top of what is illegal inside of Massachusetts, because it's like an organization.
Yeah.
So they were prioritizing people within the Homebase program itself and prioritizing Homebase itself when it came to the landlords. So if you wanted to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in West Roxbury and you were going up against somebody that was in the Homebase program, what's the probability you're going to get it when the landlord is getting an extra collecting an extra month's worth of rent? You're not. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. There's a lot of, it's a dirty, dirty thing. And I understand that, when you're expanding programs, things could happen, but it seems a little intentional to me.
Yeah. And in fact, no, you're totally right. Intentional. In fact, the study also pointed, it was almost like at the end that there's no asset testing in Massachusetts. So, you don't have to verify a lot of information, let alone your assets. And it's funny, right after we put out this study, the author of this study, who does similar work in other states, he had a state where a third-party company looks at assets, and a state hired him for their welfare to look at, what kind of people on welfare who have high assets. And they found like people are owning like Porsches, like these high-end European cars, who are also getting welfare. And Massachusetts, we don't look at any of the assets. So we don't know if people are sitting on, like second homes and stuff like that, who are on the welfare system, just totally abusing it. And obviously it could easily be done. There's other states that do it. That made national news, that story.
Oh, 100%.
So to your point, I think, there's a lot of intentionality. And of course, Healy, when she's getting pushed back on this, she said, we're going to hire more caseworkers. And that was something that came up when we released the study, and the author of our study said, hiring more caseworkers at the welfare agencies while not fixing the policies as contributing to the problem is like having a leaky sink in your kitchen and trying to mop it up while it's still leaking. Like you're never going to fix the problem that way. You're just throwing more bureaucrats at a problem where the policy is broken. So
exactly. And the crazy thing about what we talk about is like, there's people like Fiscal Alliance Foundation, Mass Fiscal, that are, commissioning these reports, commissioning these studies, spending money on these things, providing that data out to the public, and it still doesn't get fixed. How is that possible?
Well, you have certain people in positions who could fix it, who are, one, not taking responsibility for the problem they made, and then two, the people that could making correction actions just don't want to do it. It's almost like, in order to fix it, they have to admit they broke it. And they're not there yet. Now, the funny part is taxpayers are completely fed up by this. Like, this
100%.
is a very popular issue with ordinary people, especially people who are middle class working. They see a lot of people can kind of see some of this stuff happening in neighborhoods, and they say, how is this possible when I'm working? So
it's sad.
It is. Hopefully change is coming. I think one thing that's pushing Healy to take some responsibility are some of these federal reforms in welfare. All the states are dealing with this, and there is consequences coming to Massachusetts for allowing this program to become spiraling out of control. So over the next, I think, few months, few years, you're going to see Massachusetts going to have to pay some pretty large fines unless they
upwards of $400 million. I was reading.
It's significant. And you can't always blame Trump when you're one of the only states having these problems, especially as our study showed in New England. Where New Hampshire is doing 1/3, 1/4 of welfare spending compared to us. So it should be interesting. But switching gears a little bit, since we last met, there's also been a lot of action in the courts. The legislature, they have a broken legislative process at the State House. Anyone that follows it knows that, how messed up it is there. And luckily there's some advocates, our group included, who are trying to bring some accountability at the State House, because it is completely broken there. And one of the ways they're trying to do this is it's a ballot question for this November. It's a public records law that would apply to the legislature and the governor. And some good news for, the reformers out there, the people outside trying to fix the inside, is the legislature, who does not want a public records law applied to them, asked the state's highest court, the SJC, to basically do like an immediate determination if this is constitutional. It wasn't like a normal court process. They basically glanced at it, it seemed like, and they said, yep, it can go forward. So I think kind of a bad day for the Senate president, the speaker, and the folks there who have their shredding machines going on overtime right now. But
it's like the dragon's lair, I call it in there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know. God forbid Massachusetts. I think we're the only state in the country that doesn't have a public records law for the legislature, the governor, and the judiciary branch.
All of us know, just so the public, you guys know, all of us that are, in this space, filing FOIA requests and getting, nowhere. Hopefully this will provide some relief to us, because it's almost next to impossible to have them release any information at all.
I know, and that's a good ballot question. So it's
absolutely
holding those in power accountable. That's a good thing. So it was good to see the state Supreme Court say, go forward with this question.
Yep.
So those were some kind of updates that the foundation has been working on, and encourage people to check out Fiscal Alliance Foundation and our social media pages. Have some really good videos and posts about these topics.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The Fiscal Alliance Foundation is a nonpartisan, nonprofit 501c3 organization. Visit our website to read more about our alternative energy policy studies, sign up for important email updates, make a tax-deductible contribution, and follow us on social media.